welcome to day 3 of digital learning, Worland Middle School style. Yesterday you should have watched a video of the PowerPoint about the atomic structure, so you should know what a proton, a neutron, and an electron are, and you should also know where they live inside the atom. You should know that protons are positively charged, that neutrons have no charge, electrons are negatively charged, and that the number of protons determines the element. So what we're going to look at today is how do we know exactly how many protons and neutrons and electrons there are inside any given atom. So in order to do that, we're going to first define what an element is. And an element is a substance that can't be broken down into simpler substances by chemical means. That means if I zap it with electricity, or if I add a lot of heat to it, or if I put it through a chemical reaction, I can't break it down into anything else other than what it is. So that means if I have gold, I can't break gold down into anything else other than gold. I can't break oxygen down into anything other than oxygen. So elements are composed of atoms that have the same atomic number. And by atomic number, I mean the same number of protons in its nucleus. Now, if you were to look at a periodic table, which I understand many of you don't have, by the way, there is one in Canvas that you can access all the time, okay? If you look at a periodic table, we're going to see a whole bunch of these little squares that each one represents a different element. We're going to call these periodic squares. Now, on the periodic square, you're going to find the atomic number right here, okay? It's always the number at the top of your periodic square. And the atomic number tells you how many protons are found in that particular atom. Okay, so every element has a unique atomic number. They're numbered 1 through 118. And the atomic number tells us how many protons are in the nucleus of an atom. So if we look at this magnesium periodic square right here, 12 is the top number, that's my atomic number, and it tells me that magnesium is going to have 12 protons in its nucleus. Now, normal atoms are what we call neutral, electrically neutral, which means that they don't have a charge. So remember that protons are positively charged, so this gives me positive 12. Now to get to 0, what do I have to have? Well, in mathematics, I have to have a negative 12. And remember, what are negatively charged are my electrons. So because any of these given elements or atoms is going to have a neutral charge, my atomic number, the number of my protons, is also going to equal the number of my electrons. So in this magnesium atom, it would have a positive 12 charge for its protons, a negative 12 charge for its electrons. Negative 12 plus positive 12 gives me 0 overall charge. Now the chemical symbol is the second thing we see on a periodic square, and it's this little abbreviation right here. So every element is abbreviated using a unique symbol of 1 or 2 letters. There aren't any that have more than 2. There were a few that had 3 for a little bit, but those were just stand-ins until the elements got their actual name. Now when we write chemical symbols, just like you write your name, the first letter is always capitalized. Okay, it's a proper noun. The second letter is always going to be lowercase. So anytime you see 2 letters together in a chemical symbol, the first one will always be capitalized, the second one will always be lowercase. If it's a single letter, it's always going to be capitalized. Now, if you get a chance to look at a periodic table, you may notice that not all of the chemical symbols line up with the name of the element. So magnesium works because it's got an M and a G in it. But we have some others that don't really match each other. So for example, Fe stands for iron. Now what does Fe have to do with iron? Well, ferrium is Latin for iron, and a lot of our scientific wording, our vocabulary, our prefixes, and our suffixes come from the Latin language. Pb, this one is one of my favorites. Pb is the chemical symbol for lead. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from Latin, and the Latin word for lead is plumbum. Now, where does that come from? We've ever heard of plumbing. People used to use lead pipes for plumbing. So plumbum, lead, Pb. Au is the chemical symbol for gold,